session we discussed about the different data types in Apex, and maps is what we were discussing. Now we're going to talk about a little more about how do we write Apex code. Before we start getting into writing the Apex code, let us quickly talk about a few key attributes of Apex which you should be familiar with. All right. So first of all, let's understand what all things we get in Apex. So Apex code, of course, it's a programming language. We have seen that there are different data types. You can define variables with specific data types, but we also need to understand what are a few more attributes of Apex. Let's have a quick discussion about that. Yeah, so Apex provides some built-in support for a few things like your DML calls. DML basically stands for so DML stands for data manipulation language. Okay, and what does that mean? As the name suggests, data manipulation. So any statements which you write in Apex code which would basically make the change in the data are basically called DML statements or DML calls. All right. So statements like insert, update, delete, these are the statements which would basically make changes which will be used for making changes to your database, because Salesforce has got its own database. We saw that there is a data type, SObject data type, which can be used for defining variables where we can store records from Salesforce objects. But now how would you work with those records? How would you make changes or create records? How would you delete records? So for those we have got DML statements, and Apex provides built-in support for that. It also provides inline Salesforce object query language support. So it provides support for inline Salesforce object query language, SOQL. SOQL is basically the query language which is used in Salesforce. So if you need to retrieve data from the database, then you can use SOQL, Salesforce object query language. It's very similar to the syntax is very similar to SQL. There is one more query language which is used in Salesforce, which is called Salesforce Object Search Language. So this is a query language and this is a search language, SOSL. Okay, so SOSL is a different, slightly different type of query language only. It's used for writing queries, but with a slightly different, I would say, with a slightly different use case. So query language is used for writing queries where you specifically know what you want to retrieve. Search language is used for writing queries where you are trying to search a value in multiple objects, multiple fields, something like that. I'll talk more about SOQL, SOSL in details later on. But yeah, so these two types of query languages are there. So yeah, based on your requirement, you can use these queries within Apex code. So it provides support inline for inline SOQL as well as inline SOSL. Now the next thing is it also provides support for looping, which allows bulk processing. So the loop functionality is present within Apex, so which allows you to do processing in bulk. That is there. There's a locking syntax mechanism which prevents record update conflict. So if the same record is being updated, let's say by two different Apex codes running at the same time, so there's a locking mechanism. So it avoids conflict, to avoid conflicts, etc. In these kind of situations, there is a locking syntax which works. So the record remains locked, and not just the record itself, maybe the related record, let's say the parent or child records also, there's a locking mechanism which works around that to ensure that there are no conflicts in the data update, etc. Okay, I would be talking a little more on this locking concept in details in possibly in a separate video, because this is a very interesting concept and something that we need to understand in details, not just for the Apex coding but for overall understanding of Salesforce also. It's very important. Now the next one is, of course, the custom public API calls that can be built from stored Apex methods. So it also provides support for Apex methods to be used as by public API calls, and to be used as web methods, etc. So that's what it provides. And okay, Now Apex is a multi-tenant aware engine. So basically Apex code is multi-tenant aware, not the Apex run engine, but yeah, the code is multi-tenant aware. So what does it mean, and how is this useful to us? So multi-tenant aware means, so it's like, when multi-tenant concept basically refers to the same shared resource. It basically refers to same shared resource used by multiple tenants, correct? Now the important thing here is, the resource should not be monopolized, the usage should not be monopolized by one particular party in this case. So that's something which is available with Apex. Yeah, I have to clear this. How do I clear? This is funny. I'll just get it cleared. It doesn't delete. Okay. Okay, give me a moment. Let me get rid of this. Just give me one quick moment. I'll get rid of it. Yeah, a bit struggling with these annotations of PowerPoint which keep on coming. Anyways, so that's basically what multi-tenant environment means. So now Apex is aware of multi-tenant model, which means that one Apex code cannot start monopolizing the overall code, the overall shared resource system. So that's what it means. So Apex runtime engine is smart enough and it is designed to prevent monopolizing of shared resources. So it does not, any Apex code does not get executed in a way where it is getting executed for 1 hour and it's basically then starting to impact all other Apex code running from other applications which are using the same shared resource or the same server. So that is what it means, and it's easy to test. Now the reason why we are talking about Apex being easy to test, because Apex has an inbuilt testing framework. Okay, so it provides built-in support, or as I said, there is a inbuilt or built-in testing framework which allows you to write Apex code to test another Apex code, and then you can basically write Apex code which can test another piece of Apex code, and it can also give you the results that, okay, fine, your actual Apex code is running properly or not. So at a later stage of time, once we learn how to write Apex code, after that we will also learn how to test Apex code, and for testing also we are going to use Apex in a way. Okay, so these are the key attributes. Now let's start getting a little into how do we write the Apex code. So for writing Apex code, yeah, there are two things which we can do. Either we can just write a block of code and then write a block of Apex code and then we execute it. Okay. Now in this case, let's say we do not want to save this code, we just want this code to run once and we can get it executed. So there is something called anonymous code block. So this anonymous code block is available under developer console. So if you go to developer console, you will get anonymous code block. So this is the place, I'll show it to you later. So this is the place where you can just write a piece of Apex code and you can execute it. It works fine. The only thing is that you will not be able to save that code. So any code that you just want to write and execute on the fly, you can always write it in an anonymous code block. However, in case you are planning to store the code, because it's not always that you will write an Apex code to run only once, right? So if you want to save the code, then you will have to write the code in a little bit of structured format. So that's where you will basically start using methods and classes. Okay. So we have already discussed about variables. We use variables for defining variables are basically, the containers which can basically contain the values which we will be using for our code. Then you can use methods. Methods are primarily set of instructions, right? And class refers to, I would say, set of methods. So you can basically build a class, and you can have you can write multiple methods in that class. So that way your entire Apex code stays or gets, you can basically save it in a more structured format. Okay, so we'll start with the methods first. Okay, methods are set of instructions, as I said. Now, what does a method contain? Method contains name of the method. So every method will have a name. So it will contain name of the method. It will also contain access modifier of the method. Okay. So access modifier. Now what is the access modifier? So when you're defining a method, you will also need to define where is this method available, or to which all Apex classes is it available, or from which all Apex classes it is accessible. Okay. So that is it. So your methods can be private, public, protected, global. So these are the options. Let's understand these a little more. So private, so when you define a method as private method, okay, so it's very simple, right? It's basically a piece of Apex code. Now you want to ensure that you are able to control where is it available, right? Pretty similar to, we have already seen the similar thing with records, etc. So for those who are familiar with sharing rules or by default, etc. So for record also we want to control whether my data will be public, private, which object data, which records will be public, private, etc. Same way I may want to, or it will be required for any business to also control which Apex code is available to be called from where, etc. All right. So that is there, and it also helps you have a proper structure of your a proper structure defined of your Apex code as well. All right. So a private access modifier basically means it's the default access modifier for methods. Okay, and it means the method is accessible only within the Apex class in which it is defined. So methods are usually, as I said, methods are defined inside the classes, and a private method means that this method is only known within the Apex class in which it is defined. All right. So if you are creating a method, let's say so if there is a class and inside that there is one method 1, there is a method 2, and if this is a private method, this private method can be called from another method inside this class itself. Okay, but it cannot be called by other methods which are not part of this class. Then public. So public is simple. So public means the method can be used by any Apex in this application. So any Apex code in your application can refer to or can call a public method defined in your system. Then protected method. Protected method means the method is visible to any inner classes in the defining Apex class and to the classes that extend the defining class. So protected method is similar to private method only, but it is also available to the inner classes in the defining Apex class. So the class in which it is defined, if there are inner classes, it is also accessible through those inner classes, and it is also accessible to other classes which are extending the defining Apex class. Okay. The next one is global. Global basically means it is accessible from from within your Salesforce org. All Apex code can access these global methods. Plus, it can also be used like web methods. So even if there is an external system which is trying to call these global methods, it can call those global methods. So if you are trying to basically write a method which will be called by another external system, then it has to be global. In addition to that, you will also need to define the data type. What is the data type for the method? So method usually will return something. So either you will have a method which would either return something, or there would be methods which would not return anything. Okay. So if the method is returning something, let's say after execution of the method, it has to, let's say there is a method called calculate. So after calculation, it has to return a result, right? Now the result has to be integer. So then your data type, the return type of the method is going to be integer. So that's how it is. Then input parameters, if there are parameters which need to be supplied at the time of calling the method, those are basically input parameters which you can define. And body of the method, of course, the body will have the code which you want to execute with that method. Okay, let's have a quick look at the example. Yeah, so this is how it would look. So this is a public method, return type is string, this is the name of the method, and your input parameters can come here within these brackets. Your input parameter can come here, and this is where your code block will be. Yeah, so that's how a method is defined. Yeah, and if, as I said, some methods will not return anything. There are methods which would just do something but not return anything. Let's say you are writing a method which will just send out an email, but you do not want it to return anything. Then you will define void here. So instead of, like, if the method is returning so if the method is returning a particular data type, then you define the data type here. If you know that method is not returning anything, it is just executing some code, but there is no return required, then it should be a void method. Correct? Okay, so that's about Apex methods. Now let's talk about Apex classes. So as I said, the way we are defining methods, we will also be defining Apex classes. Apex class is basically the container which contains the method. So you cannot directly go and define a method. You'll have to create an Apex class, and inside the class you will be defining the methods. Okay. So classes in Apex, you can define top level classes and you can define inner classes. So in Apex, you can basically define the outermost classes basically. So your classes can be outermost classes or the top level classes which you save, and inside the class there can be other classes as well. So that is also possible. A class usually would contain name of the class, again pretty similar to the way we were defining the method. A class will have the name of the class. It will also have an access modifier. For class also there is this concept of access modifier. Again, access modifier can be private. Yeah, so this is the private access modifier basically means it's only known locally, it is only known within the class inside which it is defined. So outermost class cannot be private. So if you are basically talking about so if we are talking about defining a class, so this outermost class cannot be private, it has to be public. Okay, but inside this there can be another class, this can be private. Okay. Then there can be public class. Public class, of course, classes which are the outermost classes, the classes which can be called for, which are also visible to other Apex code within your application. And then global classes, as I said, global classes are the ones which are accessible through your Apex code in your org. Plus, it can be called through an external, API calls, etc. as well. Okay. And then there are certain keywords for the classes. So one is the class. So you use the class keyword basically. I'll show you the syntax. There's like this public class. So this keyword needs to be used. So access modifier, the keyword class, and the name of the class. Okay. So public is the access modifier. Class is the keyword you'll have to use while you're defining the class, and you have to then, this is the name of the class, and after that you can basically write the code whatever you want to write inside it. There's another keyword called with sharing which you can use for your class. It's optional, but if you want you can use it. What does it mean? This is used to ensure that the sharing rules of the current user are enforced. So current user means the user who is calling that Apex code. If your Apex class has got if you have defined your Apex class with sharing, then every time the code within that class is being called or executed, it will the Apex will automatically enforce the sharing rules for that code. So if I do not have access to a record, it would not retrieve those records for me. Correct? So sharing rules will be enforced, right? But if it is not enforced, then what will happen? I will continue to have access to everything. Okay, sharing rules will not be enforced. Example, this is without sharing. Yeah, so there's with sharing keyword, and then there is without sharing keyword as well. This is also optional. So with sharing, without sharing are optional, and without sharing is used to ensure that the sharing rules for the current user are not enforced. Okay, so with sharing will give you the option to enforce the sharing rules. Without sharing keyword will basically give you the option to enforce to ensure that the sharing rules are not enforced. Yeah, so this should be ideally with sharing. Yeah, this is fine. Yeah, public with sharing and public without sharing. So this is how you can basically define. So these are also keywords like with sharing class. These are the keywords which are used, and here it's without sharing class and then the class name, whatever you want, right? Okay, so these are some of the basics about the methods and classes. We'll keep it here. We are going to start talking a little more on how do we write a specific Apex code. We will see some sample codes, etc. And we will also try to write some of the code in the following sessions that we do. In case you have got any specific questions, any specific areas where you want me to talk or elaborate a little more, please do let me know. You can put in a comment, and I would see if I can include those or talk about those in this series itself, or if it is required, I can possibly do a separate focused video on that. So even if you are basically working on a particular type of code or project, and you have got queries or you are getting stuck somewhere, you can try sharing it. I'm not sure if I will be able to get or answer everything, but yeah, if there is something which can help others also learn, I feel that that's a very good approach. So I can basically talk about that, share more on that. So we'll keep it here for now, and we'll continue to work on this or learn more about it, writing it in our next session.